What if one of Errol Flynn's greatest swashbucklers is based on a famous book, but not the story you think? What if Warner kept the title The Seahawk because it sounded legendary, then launched a different adventure built to hit the audience like a warning bell? And what if they built a massive setup with full-scale ships and still used a secret trick to make the battles feel even bigger? These are the top 10 weird Seahawk facts behind the classic. Fact number 10. Warner didn't go to sea. They brought sea to Warner. Let's start with the how is that even possible flex. Because this sounds fake. Warner Brothers built a brand new soundstage and constructed full-scale ships just for these battles, built over a specially constructed artificial lake/water tank. Let that sink in. Not some deck pieces, not a mast and a railing. Full-size ships, so the actors could sprint, swing, fire cannons, and move like they were living on a vessel big enough to swallow them whole. Here's why that's special, in one clean comparison. 1924 got scale by going to the ocean. Captain Blood got scale with small-scale miniature ships. The Seahawk built the ocean and put the full-scale ships on it. Warner wanted the size of the ocean with total control. So they basically manufactured a sea, a controlled ocean where they could time the action, light it perfectly, and reset the chaos until it hit. That's why these ship scenes feel so physical, so heavy, so real. Because nobody's pretending on a tiny platform. They're moving through a world that's actually big. And even after building all that, they still weren't satisfied. So they pulled a cheat to make it feel even bigger. Fact number 9. They supercharged the sea battles with 1924 footage. Here's the cheat, and it's the kind that makes the movie better. Even with full-scale ships, you still want the battle to feel limitless. More ships, more chaos, more horizon. So Warner did something bold. They spliced in some key sea battle shots from the 1924 silent Seahawk. That isn't a downgrade, it's a power move. Because it's a magic trick your brain instantly buys. 1940 gives you weight, faces, bodies, cannons, decks shaking under feet. 1924 gives you scale, those sweeping wide shots where the sea looks endless. Cut them together and your brain goes, yep, that's a war at sea. Think of it like this. 1924 is the sea for real. Captain Blood is the sea by illusion, and the Seahawk is the sea rebuilt in a studio, then supercharged with the best real ocean shots they already had. And Korngold turns the whole thing into a charge. Fact number 8. Korngold's score was Oscar nominated. If you love the way Captain Blood and Robin Hood sound, those themes that make you sit up straighter, you're already in the world of Eric Wolfgang Korngold. And The Seahawk is one of his most celebrated film scores. It's not background music, it's propulsion. This score tells you what you feel before you even know what's happening. Danger arriving, romance rising, courage tightening its grip. And it wasn't just fans who noticed. The score was nominated for an Academy Award along with other nominations for the film. That's the difference between music under a scene and music that turns a scene into a legend. And here's the wild part. This movie is black and white, yet it still feels like it has color in its veins. Which brings us to the studio flex behind the flex. Fact number 7. This was a big, expensive swashbuckler, and Warner treated it that way. Warner didn't treat the Seahawk like a casual genre entry. It was a major production, with a large budget for its time, often cited around the $1.7 million range, plus huge sets and spectacle baked into the bones. And the studio wasn't doing this for fun. They wanted a prestige swashbuckler. A flagship adventure that could stand tall in 1940. So you get a film that feels oversized in the best way. Palaces, courts, galleys, raids, and the crowd scenes that look like a whole world showed up to watch history happen. That's why it plays like a main event, not a B picture. And to sell flagship, you need the look to match. Fact number 6, the camera look that makes it feel like a flagship. Here's a big reason the movie never feels small. The cinematographer was Sol Polito. And if you don't recognize the name, you can feel the effect, crisp contrast, confident staging, and that big studio adventure look that keeps ships, crowds, and palace scenes feeling huge. Because the goal wasn't only to entertain, it was to look like Warner's best version of this genre. A swashbuckler with prestige muscles. And visually, the Seahawk doesn't blink. Now, before we hit the bigger story twist, here's a detail most people never notice, until you point it out. Then they can't unknow it. Fact number 5. The based on a book twist nobody expects. Let's do the name game, because this one fools people confidently. Most people hear the Seahawk and assume, oh, Raphael Sabatini, the same guy who wrote Captain Blood. Quick refresher, Sabatini was a best-selling swashbuckling novelist, basically one of the writers who helped invent the pirate adventure vibe Hollywood loved. And yes, early on, this project gets talked about like it's tied to Sabatini's book and legacy. The Silent Seahawk in 1924 followed his novel much more closely. Here's the part people get wrong. The 1940 movie ends up essentially original for the screen. So much so that many accounts note the screenplay had little to nothing to do with Sabatini's novel, even though the studio still liked flashing that famous name for publicity. Translation: Warner didn't remake an old hit. They kept a famous flag and launched a totally different ship under it. And once you realize that, the movie starts to feel like it has a second engine running under the deck, because it's not trying to entertain. It's trying to send a message. More on that later. But first, let's look at the special effects. Fact number 4. Some Panama scenes used a special filter effect. Here's a small print trick that makes the film feel subtly bigger than it is. In some first release prints, the Panama scenes were given a warm sepia or brown tint, like a special wash over black and white. It's subtle, but it does a lot. It separates locations fast, gives those scenes a tropical flavor, and makes the whole movie feel more varied, even without color. And for the early 1940s, that kind of tinting was a little special. It wasn't the default for most studio features, so audiences would actually notice the shift. Even more interesting, those sepia versions didn't always survive in later copies, so for years many viewers only saw those scenes in plain black and white, until the tint was restored in some releases. It's that classic studio-era trick. If you can't use Technicolor, you use tone and tint to steer your mood and guide the eye. And the people steering that mood weren't guessing. They were experienced. Like, dangerously experienced. Fact number 3. Flynn and Curtis had already become a swashbuckler engine. By the time Seahawk arrived, Flynn and director Michael Curtis weren't new partners. They were a proven engine. They'd already made a long run of films together. And you can feel that we know how to do this confidence in every scene that moves. And here's the fun part. Plenty of accounts say Flynn and Curtis reportedly didn't get along, which sounds like a problem until you notice something. Sometimes tension makes the movie sharper. The pacing stays aggressive. The action snaps. The movie that has unforgettable edge energy, like the camera is always 2 steps ahead of you, grinning. And when that kind of sharp, confident adventure lands in a very specific year, it hits different. Fact number 2. This adventure hits differently in 1940. Here's the sneaky layer. The Seahawk is fun, romantic, and fast, but it also carries an extra charge from its moment in history. By 1940, Europe was already engulfed in war, and even across the ocean, the world felt like it was tilting. That's why this film is often read as more than escapism. It plays like a classic adventure. Privateers, palace intrigue, raids, sword fights, but it also lands as a stand tall, don't fold kind of story. It's not preachy, it doesn't lecture, it just makes courage feel glamorous and hesitation feel dangerous. And that brings us to the final why this matters moment, because in the end, this movie shows its true purpose. Not with a sword, but with a speech. Fact number 1. The ending plays like a rallying cry. Here's the masterstroke. On the surface, the Seahawk is an Elizabethan adventure. Spain, England, privateers, and a looming threat of invasion. But in 1940, a looming invasion doesn't feel like distant history, it feels like a warning bell. So when the film reaches its climax, when Elizabeth's resolve hardens and the story turns toward defiance, it lands as more than plot. It lands like a message. Freedom is not something you assume, it's something you defend. And that's why this movie still hits. Because it isn't just swashbuckling fun, it's swashbuckling fun with a spine. So there you have it, 10 weird Seahawk facts. Warner building new stages and full-scale ships. Battle spectacle boosted with footage from the 1924 film. Korngold's Oscar-nominated score driving the ship. A big-budget flagship feel. Sol Polito's confident camera look. The based-on-a-book twist that's really a title switch. Sepia-tinted Panama sequences that add flavor. Flynn and Curtis as a proven engine with that sharp edge. The movie's extra charge in 1940. And a finale that rallies without preaching. If you love this kind of adventure story, you need the perfect companion piece. Go watch my Captain Blood breakdown next, because if the Seahawk is the swashbuckler that brought urgency to 1940, Captain Blood is the blueprint that taught Hollywood how to make this engine roar. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next adventure.